Xena learned early that love could feel like sunlight on bare skin, warm, certain, and almost unreal. She met Kojo Mensa on a rainy Wednesday that made the world smell like wet earth and second chances. Her umbrella had turned inside out outside the campus library, and she was wrestling with it like it had a grudge. Kojo stepped in, laughing softly, and held the umbrella steady like he'd been doing it all his life. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and tell us where you're watching from. Easy, Kojo said, his voice calm in a storm. You're fighting the wind. The wind always wins. Xena frowned. So what do you suggest? I suggest you let me walk you to your hostel before the sky decides you've suffered enough. She should have said no. She wasn't the kind of girl who collected kindness from strangers. But Kojo's smile didn't feel like a trick, it felt like a door. So she nodded, and they walked side by side under a stubborn umbrella, sharing small talk that grew into something bigger by the time they reached her gate. From that day, Kojo became a steady presence in Xena's life. He learned her rhythms, how she liked her tea too sweet, how she hummed when she was anxious, how she pretended she wasn't hurt when people disappointed her. In return, Xena learned Kojo's silences, the kind that came when he thought too much about the future and not enough about the present. Do you ever rest? She asked him once, watching him rewrite an assignment at 2 a.m., his eyes red from exhaustion. Kojo shrugged. Rest is for people whose dreams don't have deadlines. That's not true, Xena argued, gently taking the pen from his fingers. Even dreams need oxygen. Kojo looked at her the way a drowning person looks at a hand offered. You feel like oxygen, he admitted. Like I can breathe better when you're around. Xena laughed, a little shy. Don't start poetry. You'll get used to me, and then what? Kojo reached for her hand. Then I'll marry you. It was said so plainly, like a plan already written. Xena's heart, always careful, always guarded, tilted toward him anyway. Their love wasn't perfect, but it was alive. Kojo was ambitious, always chasing something. Xena was gentle but firm, always trying to make sure love didn't become a casualty of hustle. They fought sometimes, about time, about priorities, about how Kojo refused to talk when he was stressed. You shut me out, Xena said after one argument, her voice trembling. It makes me feel like I'm dating a wall. Kojo's jaw tightened. I'm not shutting you out. I'm trying not to burden you. I'm not glass, Kojo. Stop treating me like I'll shatter. He stared at her, then pulled her into a hug so tight it was almost a confession. I'm scared, he whispered. Scared of failing. Scared you'll wake up one day and realize you deserve better. Xena pressed her forehead against his chest. I chose you. Don't insult my choice. When Kojo graduated, he landed a promising job with a construction firm. The pay wasn't huge, but the future looked bright enough to make their dreams feel realistic. They started talking about marriage in a way that wasn't just romantic, it was practical. 2 years, Kojo said one evening, drawing invisible timelines on Xena's palm. Let me settle, save, and then I'll come to your mother properly. Xena smiled. My mother will interrogate you like a police officer. Kojo laughed. Then I'll wear my best shirt and let her arrest me. But life has a cruel habit of editing love stories without permission. It began with small symptoms Kojo ignored. A cough that stayed too long. Fatigue that didn't match his age. A dull pain he brushed off as stress. Xena begged him to see a doctor. Kojo kept promising, tomorrow, next week, when work calms down. One night, Kojo collapsed in their small living room. Xena's scream cracked the air. At the hospital, the fluorescent lights made everything look too bright to be real. Doctors spoke in careful sentences. Tests were ordered. Results arrived like a storm. Xena sat across from Kojo in the ward, her fingers wrapped around his. Tell me the truth, she demanded softly. What did they say? Kojo swallowed. It's complicated. Xena's eyes filled. Kojo. He looked away, and that was how she knew. People only look away when the truth is heavier than their voice. It's my heart, Kojo admitted, the words scraping out. A condition. They caught it late. Xena shook her head as if refusing could rewrite reality. Late? What does late mean? Kojo's voice dropped. It means they'll try, but they can't promise. Xena stood up so fast her chair scraped. No, they will promise. They have to. Kojo reached for her wrist, pulling her back gently. Xena, I'm tired. She leaned over him, tears spilling. Then I'll carry the tiredness for you. You hear me? I'll carry it. Kojo smiled faintly. You always wanted to carry things that aren't yours. So let me, she pleaded. Let me carry you. For months, Zena became a soldier. She learned medical terms she never wanted to know. She memorized medication schedules. She smiled through exhaustion so Kojo wouldn't feel guilty for being sick. She prayed with a desperation that made her knees ache. She watched his body shrink as if life was slowly packing its bags. One evening, Kojo asked her to sit closer. His voice was thin, but his eyes were clear. "Promise me something," he said. Zena held his hand tighter. "Anything. If things go wrong, don't make a shrine out of me." Zena's lips trembled. "Don't talk like that." Kojo insisted, the way dying people sometimes do, firm, unavoidable. "Promise me you'll live. You'll love again. You'll laugh without feeling like you're betraying me." Zena's tears fell onto his blanket. "I don't want another love. I want you." Kojo lifted his shaky hand, wiping her cheek. "I know. That's why I'm asking. Because loving me is easy for you. Living after me will be hard." Zena wanted to scream. Instead, she nodded, because she loved him enough to hold his fear with him. Kojo died on a quiet morning that looked too ordinary for tragedy. Zena was holding his hand when it happened. One moment, his fingers squeezed hers, faint but present. The next, the squeeze was gone. Zena stared at his face, waiting for breath to return like a delayed bus. "Kojo," she whispered. "Kojo, stop." The monitors told the truth her heart refused. In the weeks that followed, Zena moved like a shadow in her own life. People brought food. People said words. People hugged her. It all felt far away, like she was watching grief through thick glass. At Kojo's funeral, the sky was clear, insultingly bright. When they lowered him into the ground, something inside Zena lowered too, something she couldn't name, only feel. At night, she lay on her bed and listened to the silence where Kojo used to be. She talked to him anyway. "I'm still here," she told the air. "I don't know why, but I am." And when sleep finally came, it wasn't rest. It was escape. Zena didn't just lose Kojo. She buried her future, her softness, her trust. She buried the version of herself that believed love always returned your effort with reward. She told herself she was fine. She went back to work. She smiled at colleagues. She nodded at friends. But inside, she was walking around with a sealed box where her heart used to be. And she swore, quietly, stubbornly, that no one would open it again. A year after Kojo's death, Zena Kess had perfected survival. She woke up, did what needed doing, and returned home to the same quiet rooms. Her mother, Mame Sika, called often, trying to coax her back into life. "You're not a tree stump, Zena," Mame Sika scolded over the phone. "You can grow again." Zena stared at the window, watching cars pass like they had places to be. "You can't grow where something died, Ma." "Who told you that?" her mother snapped. "Even graveyards have grass." Zena didn't respond, because her mother was right in a way that hurt. The day Elier Daramola entered her life, Zena wasn't looking for him. She wasn't looking for anyone. It happened at a bookstore cafe, one of Zena's quiet sanctuaries. She was reaching for a novel when another hand reached for the same copy. Their fingers brushed. Zena pulled back quickly, apologetic by habit. "Sorry," she murmured. The man smiled. He had kind eyes, dangerously kind, the kind Zena didn't trust anymore. "You were here first." "No, it's okay," Zena said, stepping back. He tilted his head. "You look like someone who apologizes even when the world bumps into you." Zena blinked, caught off guard. "And you look like someone who talks too much." He laughed, not offended. "Fair. I'm Elier." Zena hesitated like her name was a secret. "Zena." "Zena," he repeated softly, as if tasting the sound. "Nice to meet you." She gave a small nod, ready to escape. But Elier didn't grab her. He didn't push. He simply moved aside and said, "If you ever want to argue about books, I'm usually here on Saturdays." Zena didn't answer. She walked away with her coffee and her silence. Yet later, she caught herself glancing toward the shelves where he stood. He was reading the back cover of a book like it mattered. She hated that it made her chest feel something. The next Saturday, Zena came again, telling herself it was coincidence. Elier was there, as if the world had planted him. He looked up and smiled. "You came back." Zena sat at a different table. "I like the coffee." Elier didn't invade her space. He simply sat at the next table, leaving a polite distance between them. "Do you mind if I read here?" Zena shrugged. "It's a public place." "True," he said, and that was it. For weeks, their connection was made of small moments. A greeting. A brief comment about a book. A shared laugh when the cafe blender screamed like a dying engine. Elia never asked the questions Zena feared. Are you single? Why are you alone? What happened to you? Instead, he treated her like a person, not a broken puzzle. One day, Zena's phone rang while she was at the cafe. It was her mother. Zena answered, but her mother's voice was sharp. You didn't tell me you missed your appointment. Zena's face tightened. I forgot. You forgot. Sika repeated, frustrated. You're forgetting yourself, Zena. Zena swallowed hard. Ma, I'll call you back. She ended the call and stared at her coffee, suddenly shaking. Grief had moods. Some days it was quiet. Some days it ambushed her in broad daylight. Elia noticed. He didn't ask what happened. He simply pushed a small plate toward her. 2 sugar-dusted buns. You look like you need something sweet, he said. Zena frowned. I didn't order that. I did, Elia replied. Not for you. For the sadness sitting with you. Zena's throat tightened. That's a strange thing to say. Elia nodded calmly. I'm a strange person. Zena stared at him. Why are you like this? Elia leaned back. Like what? Gentle, she whispered, the word tasting unfamiliar. Elia's eyes softened. Because harshness already exists everywhere. I'm trying to be something else. Zena laughed once, short, bitter. Gentle doesn't last. Life breaks gentle things. Elia didn't argue. He just said, then I hope life gets tired of breaking things. Zena wanted to dislike him. But she couldn't. As their friendship grew, Zena found herself speaking more. Not about Kojo, not yet. But about her days. Her work. Her childhood. Her small frustrations. Elia listened like each detail was worth holding. One evening, Elia offered to walk her to her car. The streetlights flickered on, casting a soft glow on the pavement. You're always alone, he said carefully, not accusing. Zena stiffened. I like it. Elia nodded. Okay, but if you ever stop liking it, I'm around. Zena's chest tightened. Don't say things like that. Why? Because I might believe you. Elia stopped walking. Would that be so bad? Zena's voice dropped. Yes. Elia didn't push. Then I'll be careful. They stood in silence for a moment, the air heavy with things unsaid. Finally, Zena whispered, I had someone. Elia's gaze stayed gentle. Past tense. Zena nodded and her eyes stung. He died. Elia didn't flinch. He didn't offer a quick fix. He simply said, I'm sorry, Zena. 2 words. No speech. No forced positivity. Just sorrow held with respect. Zena's shoulders trembled. I loved him. I believe you, Elia replied. I buried my heart with him, Zena confessed, her voice cracking. And I don't know how to dig it up. Elia looked at her, eyes steady. Then don't dig. Not yet. Just breathe first. Zena wiped her cheeks quickly. Breathing doesn't help when you're empty. Elia nodded. It does slowly. Empty lungs still need air. Zena stared at him, angry and desperate at the same time. What if I breathe and it still hurts? Elia spoke softly. Then we breathe through the hurt. That night, Zena sat in her car and cried until her face ached. Not because Elia saved her, he didn't. But because he didn't demand she be saved. He simply stood nearby, like a lighthouse that didn't move even when the sea raged. Weeks turned into months, and Zena began to notice something terrifying. She was starting to look forward to seeing him. She was starting to laugh without forcing it. She was starting to feel warmth where only cold had lived. And that scared her more than grief ever did. Because grief, at least, was loyal. Hope had a history of leaving. Zena didn't fall in love with Elia in one dramatic moment. It happened the way dawn happens. Slow, almost invisible, until suddenly the sky is different and you can't pretend it's still night. It began with comfort. Elia became the person she called when her car refused to start. The person who remembered she hated loud restaurants and found quiet places instead. The person who sent her voice notes, short and silly, just to make her smile. One night, Zena's power went out during a storm. The rain slapped her windows like it was angry. She sat on the couch in darkness, her phone battery low, her chest tight with old memories. Kojo had died in a stormy season too. Every heavy rain still made her feel like she was back in the hospital, praying into fluorescent light. Her phone rang. Elia. Zena answered, trying to sound normal. Hello. Your voice sounds like you're standing on a cliff, Elia said quietly. Zena's breath hitched. It's just rain. Elia paused. Do you want company? No, Zena lied. Elia didn't call her out. He simply said, I'm coming anyway. Not to talk. Just to sit. If you want me to leave, I'll leave. Zena's eyes filled. You can't just. I can, Elia replied. Because I care. Before she could argue more, there was a knock at her door 30 minutes later. Elia stood there holding 2 candles and a small bag. Emergency kit, he said, raising the bag slightly. Bread, tea, and rechargeable lamp. Zena stared at him, stunned. You planned for this? Elia shrugged. Life happens. I try to meet it prepared. She stepped aside, letting him in. They sat on the floor in candlelight, sipping tea as thunder rolled outside. Zena expected her grief to show up and embarrass her. It did, but Elia didn't look away. I miss him, Zena whispered suddenly, surprising herself. Elia nodded. Tell me about him. Zena's throat tightened. It hurts. Elia's voice stayed soft. You don't have to perform your pain. Just speak it. So Zena spoke. About Kojo's laugh. About his stubborn ambition. About how he used to call her my oxygen, even before he got sick. About how she held his hand when his pulse left. She cried until her chest hurt, until her whole body felt wrung out. Elia didn't rush her. He didn't say, time heals, like a useless slogan. He just sat close enough to be warm and far enough to be respectful. When Zena finally fell silent, Elia whispered, he mattered. Zena nodded. He was my home. Elia's eyes were glossy. Then he will always be part of you. Loving again won't erase him. Zena laughed bitterly. People will say it does. Elia shook his head. People say many things. But grief isn't a marriage contract that forbids joy. Zena stared at the candle flame. I feel guilty. Elia leaned forward slightly. For what? For smiling when you text me. For laughing when you tease me. For enjoying your company. Her voice broke. Sometimes I hear Kojo's voice in my head, and I feel like I'm betraying him. Elia took a careful breath, choosing his words like they were fragile glass. Zena, if Kojo loved you the way you describe, he wouldn't want your life to become a cemetery. Zena's tears fell again, quieter now. He told me to live. Elia nodded. Then honoring him might look like breathing, even when it feels wrong. Silence stretched between them, filled with rain and memory. Then Elia said something that changed everything. I'm not here to replace him, Elia murmured. I'm here because I want you. All of you. Even the part that still belongs to him. Zena's heart, buried and sealed, shifted inside her like something waking up. She whispered, Why would you accept that? Elia's voice was steady. Because love isn't threatened by a ghost. Love is threatened by fear. Zena covered her mouth, shaking. Elia didn't touch her without permission. He simply offered his hand, palm up, like an invitation, not a demand. Zena stared at it like it was a bridge. Finally, she placed her hand in his. Elia's fingers closed gently around hers. Breathe, he whispered. Zena inhaled, slow, shaky, like she was learning for the first time. Weeks after that night, Zena and Elia began to spend more time together openly. They weren't rushing into labels. They were building something careful, something that respected the past without living inside it. But heartbreak doesn't always end when love returns. Sometimes it fights to stay. One afternoon, Zena visited Kojo's grave alone. The cemetery was quiet, the air heavy with stillness. She knelt, brushing leaves away from the stone. I'm sorry, she whispered, tears slipping out before she could stop them. I tried to keep my promise to you. I tried to live. But I didn't know how. Her throat tightened. And now there's someone. Zena expected the earth to open, for lightning to strike, for guilt to punish her. Instead, there was only wind, soft and ordinary. She smiled through tears. He's kind, Kojo. He doesn't make me feel like I'm cheating. He makes me feel like I'm healing. Zena placed her palm on the grave. I still love you. I think I always will, in some way. She inhaled. But I'm tired of dying with you. Her voice broke. I want to live. Please let me. Of course, Kojo didn't answer. But Zena felt something anyway. Something like peace, delicate and new. That evening, she met Elia at the bookstore cafe. He was reading when she arrived, glasses perched low on his nose. You're late, Elia teased. Zena sat across from him. I had somewhere to go. Elia studied her face. Are you okay? Zena nodded, then surprised both of them by saying, I went to see Kojo. Elia's expression softened. How was it? Zena swallowed. Hard. But necessary. Elia nodded. Do you want to talk about it? Zena reached across the table and placed her hand over his. Not in details. Elia's thumb brushed her knuckles gently. Okay. Zena took a breath. But I told him something. Elia's eyebrows lifted slightly. What did you tell him? Zena's eyes filled again, but she didn't look away this time. I told him I'm tired of dying. Elior's throat moved as he swallowed emotion. And what did you tell yourself? Xena smiled, small and real. That I deserve to breathe. Elior's eyes shimmered. Yes, you do. They sat in silence for a moment, hands joined, surrounded by books. Stories with endings and beginnings. Xena whispered, I'm scared. Elior nodded. Me too. Xena blinked. You are? Elior smiled sadly. Loving someone who has been broken teaches you two things. Patience and fear. Because you don't want to be the reason they break again. Xena squeezed his hand. Then don't break me. And I won't break you. Elior let out a shaky laugh. Deal. Xena leaned forward and rested her forehead against his hand, eyes closed. In that moment, she understood something important. Kojo was a chapter that shaped her. Elior wasn't a replacement, he was a continuation. And her heart, once buried, was finally learning to rise. Not by forgetting, but by forgiving herself for surviving. That night, when Elior walked her to her car, he paused beside the door. Xena, he said softly, can I kiss you? Xena's heart hammered. She remembered hospital lights, funeral songs, the sound of dirt hitting a coffin. She remembered the part of her that swore no one would open her again. Then she looked at Elior, steady, gentle, patient. She nodded. Yes. Elior kissed her slowly, like he was asking permission with every second. Xena's eyes filled with tears, not because it was sad, but because it was real. When they pulled apart, Xena laughed through tears. I thought I forgot how to do this. Elior brushed her cheek. You didn't forget. You were just holding your breath. Xena exhaled, smiling. Then teach me. Elior whispered, I will. One breath at a time. And for the first time in a long time, Xena Kess drove home feeling like the world wasn't only made of endings. Somewhere deep inside, her heart, once buried, beat again quietly but stubbornly, refusing to stay underground. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and tell us where you're watching from.